Hello all, Jacob here. I regret to inform you all that I really have nothing better to do. So, for the purposes of Philosophy August, which is something that I invented, today I'll be ranking all of the different philosophers on this here list. I'll be entirely honest with you guys, I don't know about half of them. So for the few that I don't know, I either won't be ranking them or I'll be putting them in the chi/who category. Also notable is the non-male/not bad category. As you can clearly tell, I did not make this list. This was made by some Italian person, but I'll be using it anyway because stealing content is sort of my thing. And also, yes, I am whispering. Treat this as an ASMR video of sorts, if you wish. Okay, so to start off, Pythagoras. I'll put him in the silly category, simply because I believe that we learned all those mathematical theorems he invented for nothing. Democrito, I'll be putting him in the cringe category, because I believe all the predecessors of modern liberal democracy are sort of cringe. Socrates, I think we need to put him all the way up here. I'm not particularly fond of most of his teachings, but he's the go-to person people think about when they think philosophy. Next up, Plato definitely has his place up there. It would be a shame to put him below Socrates. Next, Aristotle, famous writer. I believe the antecessor, the first guy to write stuff down and define a philosopher as just someone who writes really good nonfiction, which is what I believe the label is, if you take all the niceness out of it. Next up, we have Epicurus. I'm putting him below Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle because Epicurus devised a lot of theorems that have proved harmful to society. Not gonna go into it, but the whole dialectic thing seems to stem back to him. And not only dialectic, but the entire concept of this scientism of we're gonna figure out what the studies say, and then we're gonna base off our entire knowledge off of that, rather than doing first-hand experimentation. Not a fan of that. To go a little bit more modern, I'm definitely gonna put Descartes in the same level, not nearly the same level as the big three ranked above him, but certainly better than Epicurus, so deserves a spot on the list, perhaps ahead of him, though this is not necessarily in chronological order, if you know what I mean. Hobbes, definitely earning a spot on the not bad place on the list. Thomas More, right next to Hobbes. I believe they're from the same time period and the same country, although I don't particularly like putting politicians in this list. Granted, it was made by an Italian person, so I'm not one to judge. Next up, Martin Luther. I'm a Catholic, so we're putting him in silly. Nevertheless, I think he had a lot of great contributions. Galilei, definitely not incomprehensible. We're putting him in not bad. Talit, incomprehensible. I'm not sure what the Italian spelling on this is, but I have an idea of who this is, and I'm putting him in incomprehensible as well. A lot of these guys are Italian. Francis Bacon, is he a philosopher? Seems like a pretty good place to put him. Carcinogens, that's an interesting route. Heidegger is down here. A lot of you may disagree, I'm putting him in GOAT tier. Heidegger was one of the classical philosophers on the traditional school, which I'm particularly a fan of. And despite his more radical political views, he had some really great insights on metaphysics that I believe have only been rivaled in recent times by the likes of Zizek. Next up, I'll be ranking Chomsky. I'll be putting him into the carcinogens route. I think he had a lot of good contributions, decent contributions to psychology, as far as the linguistics of psychology go. But as far as anything he has to say on the political state of the world, or metaphysics for that matter, completely goes out the window, largely due to who Chomsky is as a person and what social values he deems to be, valuable. I would personally not sit down and have a conversation with that man given the opportunity. I don't think anything valuable would come of it, and I personally don't respect him as a philosopher. Feel free to disagree in the comments, I won't read them. Camus. I've grown out of my Camus stage, but there will be so many people that are going to be pissed at me if I don't put him at GOAT. Come on, the man's made some pretty good books, and he helped me pass AP English in high school, so definitely up there. John Locke, social contract theory. Not bad, though kind of incomprehensible. Next up, Sartre. I like Sartre, though he spent a lot of his life just getting cucked by his wife. I'm putting him at silly tier because a lot of his theories were peak silly. Next up, we have Foucault. I tend to find his theories very interesting, though they are very difficult to understand, so incomprehensible. Hegel. I'm debating between silly and cringe, but I don't feel like putting him in the same tier as Sartre, so I'll be going for cringe. I think a lot of the stuff that he wrote about holds up in modern day. Doesn't make it any less cringe. Next up, we have Machiavelli. Another goat all the way up here. Peak cynic. I think a lot of people truly don't understand who he was. They think of him as some sort of like royal advisor, when in reality he was just a silly, goofy writer who happened to be right about a lot of things, which is what writers should do. They should be right, you know? Montesquieu. Baron de Montesquieu. Incomprehensible. I think you're just like a too advanced version of Locke for me to understand. Marx. I think a lot of you would agree with me here when I put him in cringe category. I don't think this even needs explaining. David Hume. Silly. He's not quite as cringe as Marx and Hegel, but he's up there with the sillies. And also, I tend to be not in favor of putting the more politically involved on this list. Russell. I personally tend to like him. Not bad tier. Freud. Very weird obsession with psychoanalysis, but as someone who is partial to psychology, I feel like putting him all the way up in master, simply because it gets modern psychologists so upset to go back into what this guy was saying, finding out that it has no scientific basis, and yet having to repeatedly quote him in his numerous amount of work simply because of how much of it he made. It reminds me of me. He's literally me. Spinoza. I put him in not bad tier, but to avoid, putting too many people in it, I put him in the incomprehensible. I don't understand some of his works. Diogenes. I don't think it even needs saying. Living on the street, pissing in, empty bottles. I mean, the man lived a truly exceptional life, and I would love to live just like him. Berkeley. Cringe. I don't like him. Voltaire definitely deserves a spot up there in master along with Freud. They're correspondingly their respective equivalents in psychology and philosophy. Smith. Adam Smith just backed up something that already existed, so I wouldn't consider him a philosopher. He's more of a politician and essayist. Gramsci. Very cringe. I think if your ideas are so vocal that you can't express them in a political situation without gathering a movement behind it that will ultimately throw you in prison, they're probably not very good outside of theory. If you need people to back you up in person in order for the ideas to make sense, if you need to gather crowds in order to center out your argument, probably not a very good argument. It just requires the force of other people to reinforce itself. And it's a shame that I have to put him in the same tier as Marx, because there's, not enough levels of cringe. I would put him at a higher level of cringe than Marx, because, Marx knew what he was talking about to some degree. He had experienced it. Gramsci, not really, though he was very outspoken about it. I guess putting him at the forefront of cringe would make more sense, but I'm putting him at the back to show that he's more cringe. I don't really know how this works. And to be honest, I'm not too bothered to figure it out. Jung, definitely up there with the OGs, though, yeah, I put him at the same level as Freud. He definitely made more sense. Actually, just a step ahead of Freud. He started the school in psychology of typology, or sorting people into respective personality types, which occupies around 80% of my free time, just looking up people's Myers-Briggs type, or 16 personalities, or Enneagram, or socionics, stuff like that. Their inclinations, it tends to make a lot of sense and actually has applications to daily life, which is more than can be said for almost anyone in this entire list. Schopenhauer, definitely GOAT tier, had a lot of interesting things to say, and definitely that nihilistic yet optimistic outlook on life that only a true bipolar bro could understand. And last, but certainly not least out of the ones that I want to rank here, Sinocrat. I have no idea what he was talking about, so carcinogens, you're down there, Chomsky. I hope everyone enjoyed my list. I'm sorry that I didn't rank too many philosophers. I'm not too well read. You see, in my 19 years of life, I've sadly not been able to read enough bullshit essays to satisfy the entirety of this list, and I don't know Italian. That said, I hope you all enjoyed, or agreed. If you don't agree, well, feel free to unsubscribe from the channel and leave a hate comment below as to why you think I should die. But thanks for the watch time and monetization money. I appreciate it. See you later.